There are places that don't exist on maps anymore, not because they were forgotten. No, because someone wanted them erased. Eldergrove Forest is one such place. Once a popular hiking destination in the 1960s, it was suddenly shut down after multiple disappearances, families, hunters, entire search parties. No bodies were ever found. Locals whispered about sounds, humming, they called it, a low, inhuman vibration that came with the dark and took things away. By 1975, the forest was officially marked unsafe, its entrances fenced, its history scrubbed from most records. But no horror stays buried forever. Olivia Lane, a documentarian known for chasing urban legends, had just the kind of obsession that drew her into places like Eldergrove. She convinced 3 others, Marcus, audio tech, Jenna, paranormal researcher, and Leo, cameraman, to sneak past the boundary and spend 3 nights in the forest. They were determined to document the truth behind the humming. They arrived late afternoon. The sun filtered through the thick canopy, painting the forest floor in strange shifting shadows. The air felt too still. No bird calls, no rustling. Just a haunting quiet that pressed on their ears. Leo muttered, "Why does this place feel like it's waiting for something?" They found a clearing near what looked like the decaying ruins of a ranger outpost. The building was collapsed inward, as though something inside had tried to escape and failed. They set up their tents, positioned motion sensors, and even placed EVP recorders around the perimeter. As night fell, they sat by their lantern, reading over the only surviving police report from 1972. Victim was last seen walking into the grove before sunset. Reports say she heard a low hum and felt dizzy. All responders who entered the forest afterward reported nausea and mental disorientation. One ranger went missing. Case closed as unexplained disappearance. That was when they heard it. Low hum, like distant machinery running under the earth. It wasn't loud, but it vibrated through their bones, subtle and disorienting. Marcus leaned forward. "It's not just sound. It's like pressure in my skull." Leo's camera began to flicker. Battery was full a second ago. Suddenly, the hum stopped. Dead silence. Then the snap of a branch, sharp, nearby. Jenna swung her flashlight toward the sound. Nothing. Then, snap, another, from the opposite side. They were being circled. Olivia rose slowly and turned her light to the trees around them. There, carved freshly into the bark, were dozens, no hundreds, of spirals, symbols that looked impossibly symmetrical, still dripping sap, and every tree in the circle had one. None of those carvings had been there when they arrived. Jenna whispered, "We're not alone out here." From somewhere deep in the woods came a strange metallic creaking sound, like rusted chains swinging slowly in the wind. But there was no wind, and then from behind them, the fire pit hissed out, like someone had exhaled over it. The fire had gone out with a breath that none of them gave. They scrambled to relight it, but the matches wouldn't strike. The temperature dropped rapidly, their breaths fogging in the air, even though it was a summer night. Jenna gripped her recorder. My EVP mic just spiked. Something whispered. I think it said, "Go back." Leo checked his camera. The last frame recorded was of Olivia's face, but distorted. Her mouth stretched too wide, eyes too dark. Yet she'd never made that expression. They tried to laugh it off, but no one really could. When morning broke, it brought no comfort. The forest didn't brighten. It just shifted into a dull, hazy grey, as though the sun was filtered through something thick and unnatural. They found new spirals etched into the trees just outside their tent area. These ones were larger, deeper, and beneath one of them, they noticed something they hadn't seen before. A jawbone, half buried in the dirt, yellow and cracked with age. Olivia knelt by it. "It's human." Jenna checked the symbols in her notes. These spirals match an ancient symbol used in Mesopotamian rituals. It was meant to summon, but never banish. As they ventured deeper into the forest, hoping to find the origin of the hum, they came upon a stone altar overgrown with vines, moss clinging to every crevice. Something had been burned there recently. The ash was still fresh. But what terrified them most was what stood behind it, an ancient, rotting tree, thicker than any tree should be, and on its bark were hundreds of carved handprints, small, large, and some impossibly long-fingered. Suddenly, the hum returned. This time, louder, more inside their heads than outside. Leo dropped to his knees, clutching his ears. Jenna screamed, "There's something behind us!" They all turned. Nothing. But their equipment began to glitch violently. Olivia's mic recorded static, and then, beneath the noise, a child's voice. "I'm still here." And then, the ground trembled, just slightly. But it was enough to send birds scattering from distant trees, and their fear rising. When they turned back toward their camp, they found that the trail was gone. No footprints, no broken branches, just more trees and more spirals. Marcus whispered, "It's not just watching us. It's playing with us." That night, they slept in shifts, but no one truly rested. At 3:11 a.m., Olivia woke to the sound of humming so loud it rattled her teeth. She stepped out, only to see Jenna, eyes wide, standing stiff between the trees. But when Olivia called her name, Jenna didn't answer. Her mouth opened slowly, too slowly, and then she hummed back. The same vibration, same tone. Then she blinked and snapped back. "What?" Jenna whispered, confused. "Why am I out here?" The night had deepened, swallowing the sky in an unnatural blackness. Aaron's flashlight flickered, barely illuminating the twisted path ahead as he stumbled through the forest. The humming had grown unbearable, no longer distant, no longer subtle. It was around him now, inside him. Every step seemed to echo with it. He paused, gasping for air. That's when he noticed the trees had changed. Their bark was no longer rough and natural. It was smooth, pale, almost like skin. Carvings were etched into their trunks, ancient symbols that pulsed faintly with light. The air felt heavier, thick, with rot and decay. Then, just ahead, the trees opened into a wide clearing. At its center stood the thing. It was a tree, but it was wrong. Too tall. Its roots curled like skeletal arms around a mound of black soil. The tree throbbed, like it was breathing. There's a hiking trail in northern Oregon known to disappear from maps every few years. Locals call it Dead Switch Trail. No official records of disappearances exist, but hikers whisper about people who've walked the trail twice, once going in and once again, unknowingly, toward their own end. This is the story of 4 hikers who should have turned back the first time the path split. James, Priya, Theo, and Leah were experienced hikers who loved taking on new trails, especially the lesser-known ones. They found a thread on a dark web forum that mentioned Dead Switch Trail, a place said to shift its terrain and trap those who walked too far. They dismissed it as folklore. The first half of their hike was stunning. Mist weaved through towering evergreens, and the forest floor was soft with fallen needles. About 2 miles in, they reached something odd. A fork in the trail that wasn't marked on any of their maps, digital or paper. One path curved upward, toward sunlight. The other dipped into dense shade. Theo joked, "Choose your doom," and Priya picked the darker route. The rest followed. As they walked, silence became oppressive. Even the birds fell quiet. The air smelled of wet stone and something metallic. Leah, already unnerved, noticed the trees now leaned toward the path unnaturally, like they were listening. By late afternoon, they found a small wooden sign nailed to a tree, carved crudely. "Turn back before the second fork." They laughed it off, But when they continued another mile and found another fork, everyone stopped. This one looked identical to the first. Even the same twisted tree leaned beside it. Only now, the light had dimmed, and the air was cold. James said, "Did we just loop?" But Priya insisted. "We never turned." They argued, but curiosity won again. They took the left path. The forest grew darker, and that's when Leah screamed. She had stepped into something, another set of their boot prints, facing the wrong direction, like someone had walked back this way. But none of them had. Leah backed away from the reversed boot prints, her face pale and stunned. Theo knelt beside them. "Same tread pattern. That's definitely ours." "But we never turned around," Priya whispered. "We've only been moving forward." James looked around, unease creeping up his spine. Maybe the trail's looping without us noticing. "No loop would explain our own prints pointing back at us," Leah said, her voice shaking. Still, turning back felt just as dangerous. They pressed on, uneasy but too deep in to abandon the trail. After 20 minutes, the terrain began to shift. The soft, mossy ground gave way to damp, black soil. The trees grew denser, and something about their bark looked scorched, blistered, as if they'd been through a fire decades ago. And that smell, faint but persistent, metallic, almost like blood. A strange wooden arch appeared up ahead, made from crooked branches tied with old rope. It spanned the trail like a gate. Hanging from the top was a wind chime of bones. Small animal bones, maybe. Maybe. No one wanted to speak. But Theo, trying to break the tension, muttered, "So this is the part where we die in every movie, right?" No one laughed. As they passed, under the arch, a low hum started. So quiet at first, they thought it was just the wind. But it grew louder, deeper. Not a hum exactly. More like a resonance in their bones. Like something big and buried was moving, far beneath the forest floor. Leah stopped walking. "Something's wrong with this place. I feel like I'm being watched." James turned to reassure her, but froze. His eyes locked onto something behind her. A second, Leah stood half hidden behind a tree. Pale. Still. Wearing the same clothes, but her expression was vacant. Eyes too wide. Lips slightly parted. He blinked. The thing behind the tree was gone. James didn't say a word. The group moved faster now, almost jogging. Priya tried to check their GPS again, but her phone was dead. Not low, not glitching, dead. Theo's was the same. "No service?" Priya asked. "No battery," Theo muttered. "It was at 80% 20 minutes ago." The trees began to shift around them, literally. What had once been a narrow path between thick trunks now widened, then twisted, like the forest was reshaping itself. That's when they saw the same second fork again. Same twisted tree. Same path uphill. Same dip into shadow. But this time, there were more boot prints, a chaotic mess of them, going in all directions. James bent down. "Some of these aren't even ours." A deep creak echoed through the woods, like an ancient door slowly opening, but there was nothing but trees, motionless. Then, from somewhere ahead, came a soft sound, a whisper, not words, just a voice, long and breathless. "Keep going." James stood straight. "Did anyone hear that?" "No," Priya said too quickly. No one heard anything. But they had. The forest was no longer just quiet. It was listening. And in its silence, something was waiting. The whisper had changed something. The air grew heavier, like they were walking through water instead of air. Each breath felt thick, damp, wrong. "We need to turn back," Leah said, clutching her arms. "Now, before we forget the way." "But which way is back?" Theo asked. "Every direction looks the same now." James scanned the surroundings. We follow our prints, backtrack, stick to the same path. But when they turned to retrace their steps, the boot prints were gone. Every single one. Wiped clean, as if the earth had swallowed them. Panic began to settle in, a cold, rational kind that whispered, "You may not get out." They chose the uphill path this time, hoping for elevation, for signal, for a break in the trees. As they walked, the forest changed again. No birds, no wind, no insects, just stillness. The trees here were taller, too tall, their branches twisted high overhead like claws, tangling into a thick canopy that blocked out all light. Their trunks were covered in deep carvings, not runes, but names. Hundreds of names, scratched wildly, over and over. Some names were half-formed, some were fresh. At the very top of one trunk, James noticed something that made his blood run cold. His own name. Carved clean. Like it had always been there. Priya turned pale. "Mine too. That one. There." Leah didn't want to look. Theo did. And found his. None of them spoke of it. Suddenly, the trail ended. Not gradually, but abruptly, like a cliff. In front of them, the earth fell away into a steep ravine, choked with roots and moss and endless darkness below. There was no sound but a faint vibration beneath their feet, a hum, steady and deep, like a growl waiting to surface. Then they saw the cabin, just off the edge of the trail, half hidden in vines and shadows. It hadn't been there before. Its wood was damp and blackened. No windows, just a crooked door, slightly open, revealing only blackness. Theo whispered, "Maybe it's shelter." "No," James said. "No, that place is bait." But as they turned, the path was gone. Not overgrown, not twisted. Gone. Only trees, dozens of them, all too close, all leaning inward. The forest had closed in behind them. Then the door of the cabin creaked open, wider. From the shadows within came a voice. Not male, not female, not human. One of you. Just one. Silence. Then a scream tore through the trees. Leah's. She was gone. Vanished. No sound of struggle, no trace. James, Priya and Theo bolted. Not down the trail, there was no trail, but through the trees, scratching, slashing, tearing their way forward. Branches pulled at their clothes. Roots twisted their ankles. Still, they ran until they found the first fork. The very first one. Same twisted tree. Same trail uphill. Same trail down. They stopped, gasping. James muttered, "No, way, we ran straight. How?" But before anyone could answer, Priya collapsed. James turned. She was breathing, but unconscious. Theo backed up and froze. The fork was gone. They were surrounded again, trapped. And then, all around them, dozens of pale figures stepped, silently from the trees. Not creatures, not monsters, copies of them. Multiple Theos, multiple Jameses, all staring with hollow, quiet eyes. They whispered in unison. "The trail ends twice. Choose again."